Warm welcome to the program today. I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos. Here's what's coming up on the world today. At least 36 people die in wildfires sweeping through the Hawaiian island of Maui. Ecuadorian presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio is shot and killed during a campaign rally in the capital, Quito. Plus, Ecowas chair highlights the need for the group to seek negotiation and dialogue in responding to the political crisis in Niger. The world today begins right now. Once again, a warm welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. We begin with the wildfires raging through the Hawaiian island of Maui, killing at least 36 people. Authorities have been trying to take in how much damage has been done and are yet to conclude on that. The wildfires, fanned by winds from a faraway hurricane, devastated much of the resort city of Lahaina on Maui. Multiple neighborhoods were burned to the ground as the western side of the island was nearly cut off, with only one highway open and thousands of people evacuated, as officials told of widespread devastation to the area, its harbor and surrounding areas. These aerial images released by the office of the Lieutenant Governor gives us a sense of the damage. Some people fled into the ocean to escape the smoke and flames. Hurricane Dora has been blamed for the intensity of the fire as it fanned the flames across the state.
So the question is, what is the timeline for basically recovery? When would the schools be open? We understand one of the schools has been damaged. And what is the timeline for getting people back to affordable housing? Right now, we're still in the assessment stage. We're still trying to assess the amount of damage, but the road to recovery will be long. The damage to the infrastructure, it's not just buildings. I mean, these were small businesses that invested in Maui. These were local residents. And, we need to figure out a way to help a lot of people in the next several years. And to build some of these structures, we understand Hawaiian Homelands was destroyed, a school was destroyed, many of the businesses, a church was destroyed. It's going to take years, and we'll be working very closely. Governor Green and I will be working very closely with the members of the legislature, with the members of the Bison administration, and many of our partners to address these things.
Well, let's take another look at the damage caused by the wildfires. Here's another aerial footage showing a harbor, houses, as well as other buildings badly charred on the resort city. Following the wildfires, multiple neighborhoods have been burned to the ground. The western side of the island was nearly cut off, with only one highway open. Some 271 structures were damaged or destroyed. That's according to local media. The fires, which started Tuesday, also scorched parts of the big island of Hawaii. We'll hear from those who had to escape the fires on Tuesday and Wednesday. Some said all they saw were smoke and cinders. Others had to sleep in their cars and wait for flights to resume to be able to get out.
Got home about 4 o'clock yesterday from work, smoke in town. My son and his girlfriend and 2 kids were at the house, and we evacuated immediately. No cell phone coverage, no internet, no way to contact the outside world. And we got to this side of the island about midnight last night, my wife and dog, and slept in the parking lot at Whole Foods. Woke up this morning and got on our phones to pictures of our house, just down to the slab, nothing but smoke.
Well, let's take in more dramatic video from Tuesday night, which captures the scope of the devastating wildfires sweeping Maui. What we know is that the Lahaina area of Maui has been severely damaged by the wildfires. Some 7 wildfires are burning in the U.S. states. According to local media, dozens of homes have been destroyed in the fire. Over 10,000 people have been evacuated west of that area. About 15,000 homes, you understand, are without power. Let's bring in our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Bird. Hi, Maria. I mean, the only similarity that I, can find in the history to the Maui fires are the California wildfires. Is this one more devastating?
This one is devastating because it's different. You're talking about a very mountainous region with Hawaii. You're talking about the area that it exists in. As we all know, the history of Hawaii is a set of volcanoes that erupted. And so when you talk about kind of the terrain, it's much different than California. And we know the death toll now has increased to 36. We also know that we are looking at potentially more individuals that have lost their lives that are trapped and that we've not been able to locate as of yet. So this is going to be a long search and rescue effort. And also, obviously, this is going to be something that will be on the radar for many, especially those in the Hawaii area, as this could be something that occurs again when you talk about these type of wildfires and the flames that swiftly cross through the area.
And Maria, to think that some people even had to hide in the ocean. A lot of people also had to leave everything behind. And more people have lost all of their belongings in the fire, save for their lives. Where are the bulk of the people headed?
The bulk of the people are going to be headed toward the mainland of the United States. Likely the California area is the closest area to get there, to get to. Obviously, there's a ton of other Hawaiian islands that potentially could house some individuals at this time, but you will likely see most people probably headed closer into the California region. So that's what we're going to see at this time, and obviously those who have family in other parts of the country will probably be going there as well.
Maria, has the federal government announced relief and rescue effort for the people?
Yes, there is a rescue effort. The governor of Hawaii has put forth a rescue effort and an emergency alert for the community. And so that is definitely what I think at this time is going to occur, is that you'll see the governor working toward being able to address this as a whole.
All right. In terms of other response, has there been any? And this is as to the wildfires and the damages caused.
Yeah, so the damages that are caused are going to definitely be a FEMA issue that the federal government will take forth. And FEMA is a Federal Emergency Management Administration. So they will be taking heed to exactly how much damage has occurred, what is going to be needed to rebuild, and exactly how to rebuild. Because this is very different than what we might see in other parts of the country, just because of the way the homes are situated on the hills. And as we stated before, you have a large natural community that exists there with a lot of the rainforest-like areas. So the terrain there is just much different.
Are there other states in the United States which may be prone to these wildfires as have happened in Maui?
Unfortunately, the western side of the country has been dealing with some sense of wildfires. And so because of the dry temperatures, we know that the Southwest, specifically the state of Texas, has been dealing with extreme temperatures, not many days that are under 100 degrees. And so when you talk about that type of heat, you are prone to wildfires because of the fact that you don't have the water and some of the rain and precipitation that will help to provide the plants and things like that with some sort of nutrients and the ability to not be at a brittle point where wildfires could occur. You also see in the state of Arizona, typically cacti survive very well in desert regions, but due to the extreme heat, we are also seeing those areas being extremely dry as well. So the drier the communities are, the more susceptible to wildfires they could be.
We'll continue to watch things unfold. Many thanks, our Washington, D.C. correspondent Maria Bird. Thanks again. An outgoing Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso, he has reacted to the assassination of presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio. Villavicencio was assassinated at a campaign event in the capital of Quito on Wednesday. President Lasso vowed the killing would not go unpunished, saying organized crime has come a long way, but the full weight of the law will fall on them. He has announced a state of emergency for 60 days, an immediate mobilization of the armed forces across the country, and 3 days of national mourning. The Electoral Council says the presidential election scheduled for August 20th will go ahead as planned. Welcome back to the program. We'll be back with more on the situation in Ecuador and also regarding the assassination and the country's election a little later. But let's talk about Ecowas. Today was the meeting where West African heads of state met together, the emergency summit, and this was to discuss a new response to last month's military takeover in the Republic of Niger. In an opening speech, we also heard the leader of the 15-member Economic Community of West African States, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, say the bloc will be assessing solutions to that situation. And we did hear from the Ecowas President Umaro Embalo, where he announced a number of resolutions, and this is to the crisis, a number of which we heard him talk about the authority having considered Ecowas engagement. He mentioned the diplomacy efforts which were taken, the number of people who went to Niger, also reports that were taking in consideration before the resolution, the reports from the chiefs of defense staff. They also noted that they had given the country's junta a timeline of the ultimatum. Well, let's listen to some of what he had to say again.
President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. Omar Ali Toure, President of the Commission. His Excellency Leonardo Santos Simao, Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel and Head of UNOWAS. His Excellency Ambassador Bankole Adeoye, Commissioner for Peace and Security, representing the Chairperson of the African Union Commission. The authority, having considered the memorandum presented by the President of the Ecowas Commission on the current situation in the Republic of Niger, as well as Ecowas engagement since the last extraordinary summit, and having considered the reports of the envoys of the chair to Niger and various other places, carefully considered the report and recommendations of the ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff, extensively discussed the latest development in Niger since the last extraordinary summit held on 30 July 2023, noted that all diplomatic efforts made by ECOWAS in resolving the crisis have been defiantly repelled by the military leadership of the Republic of Niger, taking note of the expiration of the one-week ultimatum given for the restoration of constitutional order in the Republic of Niger, decide as follows. A, reiterates its strong condemnation of the attempted coup d'etat and the continued illegal detention of President Mohamed Bazoum, his family, and members of his government. B, further condemns the condition in which President Bazoum is being detained and hold the CNSP fully and solely responsible for the safety, security, and physical integrity of President Bazoum, members of his family, and government. C, uphold all measures and principles agreed upon by the extraordinary summit held on Niger on 30th July 2023. Underscore the determination of the ECOWAS authority to keep all options on the table for the peaceful resolution of the crisis. Enforce all measures, in particular border closures and strict travel bans and assets freeze, on all persons or groups of individuals whose actions hinder all peaceful efforts aimed at ensuring the smooth and complete restoration of constitutional order. Warn member states who, by their action directly or indirectly, hindered the peaceful resolution of the crisis in Niger, about the consequences for their action before the community. Call on the African Union to endorse all the decisions taken by the Ecowas authority on the situation in Niger. Further call on all partner countries and institutions, including the United Nations, to support Ecowas in its effort to ensure a quick restoration of constitutional order in conformity with its normative instruments. Direct the President of the Commission to monitor the implementation of the sanctions. Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the Ecowas standby force with all its elements immediately. Order the deployment of the Ecowas standby force to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger. Underscore its continued commitment to the restoration of constitutional order through peaceful means. Express appreciation to His Excellency General Abdulsalami Abubakar, His Eminence Muhammadu Saad Abubakar, the Sultan of Sokoto, Ambassador Baba Kingibe for the special envoy missions undertaken in Niger, Libya, and Algeria on behalf of the Chair of Authority.
Well, the Ecowas president there with a long list of resolutions. Well, joining me to talk more about this is former permanent representative to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi. Thanks for joining us on the program. Tell us, did you notice any difference, and this is between what Ecowas is saying now and its position 2 weeks ago?
Not really. By the way, thanks for having me. Not really. I think we need to take a little bit time to see the fine print and actually read exactly, because there's some ambiguities, you know, some confusion. On one hand, I heard that all options remain on the table, and at the same time, I heard order the military, order the chief of staff.
Standby force.
Yes, order the chief of staff to reactivate or to activate the Ecowas stand force and restore constitutional order. It's confusing. So I think we need to really look at the fine print, exactly what the heads of states have decided, because right now, on one hand, they are offering, you know, to negotiate. I mean, they are still saying all options remain on the table. They've not talked about, you know, further diplomatic engagement, you know, with the new government, because they formed the government in Niger. But it seems to me that we are set for war. I might be wrong, because I'm waiting to really be sure of exactly what was decided.
I also think that the last words were also restoration of constitutional order through peaceful means. One really wonders how perhaps the junta would regard this sort of resolution coming out from ECOWAS today.
No, did they ask the chief of staff to restore constitutional order through peaceful means? Is that what the communique said? I mean, we need to be very clear what they're saying. You know, on the first time, they said all options remain on the table. So you assume that they will find other ways of pursuing a diplomatic, you know, solution to the crisis. But they're activating the ECOWAS stand force, and they're asking the chief of staff to restore constitutional order. I'm not too sure exactly what the authority of ECOWAS want to do now, but my God's feeling, and I pray I'm wrong, that they actually want to send in the military.
Part of the resolution today was calling on the AU to endorse all decisions taken by ECOWAS in Niger. What do you think has been the body language of the AU since this whole thing began?
Well, normally you should expect that AU will support ECOWAS position, because in issues like this, normally once a regional body has taken a position, AU, operational practice is to support the regional body. And of course, the same thing would happen, that the United Nations would also support the African Union and AU in whatever efforts they decide to engage in. So what they did in calling on the AU they want to get a larger regional support for whatever action they may eventually have settled for.
And do you think that the AU will ground this?
Oh, of course. I mean, the Commissioner for Peace and Security, representing the AU, was at the meeting this afternoon, and again was part of those who agreed on the resolution that was read out a few minutes ago. So certainly AU will endorse it, very quickly, no doubt about that.
But perhaps with regards to what's going on in Niger, setting up, Secretary General of Government, naming 21 ministers, and this is without specifying other government plans. What do you think, moving ahead, the junta plans to do moving forward?
Well, very easy. As far as the junta is concerned, they've moved on. They formed the government, and they want to, for them, they are moving on, and they are not listening to what Ecowas is saying. I sincerely hope that, they can carefully study the resolution that Ecowas has issued today, and see whether they too can open up channels of communication to Ecowas to find, look, but on the whole, I thought that Ecowas itself in the past has had a kind of template, the way they dealt with Guinea, with Mali, and with Burkina Faso. But when it comes to Niger, they seem to be adopting a complete different, approach, which for me is worrisome. Because as we speak, you have no clue where the next coup would happen, and it would happen anyway. If you know what's going on in the region. I mean, for some of us, we've been speculating for almost 2 years that a coup will take place in Niger, and it has taken place. So, if you take military action today in Niger, are you going to be going around anywhere there's a coup taking military action, or you are judging Niger by a different standard? This is what is confusing to me. Honestly, I sincerely hope that I heard right, that further actions, they will continue to pursue peaceful means. I heard that very clear. But towards the third or, last resolution, which says reactivate and order to restore through peaceful means, that honestly, I don't understand. But as I said, we need to see the fine print before we jump to, our final conclusion on this issue. But certainly what I was expecting, I didn't hear it from the authority of the heads of states of Ecuador.
But is there a fine print that says, and when it comes to Ecuador speaking, and that is the bloc continues to seek the reinstatement of Mohamed Bazoum? I mean, is that clear to you in print? Well,
look, even my first surprise is that the resolution started by, I think the first resolution or the first decision and the second decision and the third was actually on the president. And I don't think that's the real issue. I would have thought that the issue of the president release and the rest will come, at the bottom. In other words, you emphasize the key issues. And I thought we've been seeing, I don't know whether it was a fake video. We've seen videos circulating that the president has been released. But again, I grant to the heads of states, they have a better information than all of us. So maybe the president has not been released. And so they are right to call for his release and to grant him access to his family and treat him well. and not to continue to put him in detention unnecessarily, you know. So, but that the fact that they are paying some serious attention to him, again, it's a surprise to me, because I'm not too sure they did this in the case of other leaders that were overthrown by their respective military.
So I want to come back to the resolution today, and leading with Ecowas chair saying no option is taken off the table to resolve the political crisis in Niger, and one of what we saw also saying directing the chief of defense to activate Ecowas standby force. Can you tell us what indeed the Ecowas standby force, what that entails?
Very simple, direct, straightforward. They are going to go in militarily. That's what it means. In other words, if the gentlemen or the military men in Niger, continue to reject all peaceful options, it should be clear to everybody now that we will soon have war, at our border between Nigeria and Niger, despite all appeals, made particularly to our own president, that war should be avoided between the two sisterly countries. I'm actually surprised that they are still maintaining that all options remain on table, and that, they should activate Ecowas stand force. I don't know, but as I said, I'll honestly wait to see the final print. But certainly what I've heard is not encouraging. This is not what I was expecting. I was expecting a balanced, middle of the road approach. But looks as if at the end of so many hours, the ECOWAS is still maintaining its initial position that they will do this militarily.
Indeed. The UN spokesperson had on Wednesday said that called for the immediate and unconditional release of Mohamed Bazoum and also his reinstatement. Do you think that ECOWAS will also be getting a number of support, and that's from the UN, the US, and other West countries?
No, absolutely. I mean, these are also those who are dictating for this to happen. But, the danger of what ECOWAS is about to do in a country like Niger is that, look, I have said this many times. There's no guarantee that there will not be another coup in Niger, whether you restore the president or you do not restore the president. It's just a matter of when will it happen. As I've always said, there's no guarantee that there will be no coup in other places in the sub-region, because the leaders themselves, some of the leaders have suppressed and are not encouraging, people's participation in the democratic process. And I've always said, if a coup happens in any of these countries, will anybody be surprised? Are we going to go into military action, trying to restore presidents who themselves did not allow democracy to exist? In Niger, it's a little bit a different game, but when you start, and this is the danger of going into, as the Americans have learned, when you begin to make that every solution you have to address militarily, the danger is that you actually have no idea where to go. I mean, you are incapable of stopping, because to every solution, because you have the power and the means, you take a military action. So we need to be very careful. But as I say again, I'll make that point very clearly. I need to see the final print, and try to understand what exactly was decided. But from what I have heard, I feel sad that despite all entries to our leaders in the sub-region, they are still on the warpath.
And a lot appears to be at stake with this. But finally, Ambassador Joe Keshi, maybe there's also another tactic: have diplomacy on the one hand and then have that military option on the other hand together.
Sure, it's a strategy, it's an option. But then they did not announce any new measures, to engage the coup plotters or the new government in Niger. Nothing was said about engaging them. Nobody was again put in place or standby to go talk to them for the second time. You know, and you know, look, when you do things like this, you must return back. And nobody has ever told you that one negotiation is what is needed to solve an intractable problem like this. You probably need to do more talking, more negotiation, more outreach, you know, to the people involved. So I sincerely hope that in addition to what they've decided, saying all options are on the table, that they would also send more envoys, you know, to Niger, you know, to again appeal to the new rulers to be reasonable, to be rational, and to work with Ecowas to find a peaceful settlement of this crisis.
Indeed. One could also argue with you, Ambassador, that the envoy sent in the case of Burkina Faso and Mali, what did that yield? But another thing we should also be looking at in this is the people of Niger, you know, how they feel about this with all of the decisions, you know, that the leaders in the bloc are also taking. We appreciate your time always. Thank you so much, Ambassador Jokesi, for joining us.
The people of Niger, if you just allow the people of Niger, you know, are already feeling the pitch of the sanctions. And so they should give time for sanctions to work. It is working. Sanctions do work. And they should just give more time for these sanctions to kick in. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Welcome back, and we go to Ecuador, where there's been lots of reactions following the assassination of the presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio. We heard from the outgoing Ecuadorian president, Guillermo Lasso, who said he vowed the killing would not go unpunished. According to him, quote, organized crime has come a long way, but the full weight of the law will fall on them. He also announced a state of emergency for 60 days, and immediate mobilization of armed forces across the country, as well as 3 days of national mourning. Other presidential hopefuls, they've expressed their condolences to relatives, supporters of Fernando Villavicencio, who was killed in the rally on Wednesday. Presidential candidate Otto Sennenholzner says there are over 3,000 Ecuadorians already that have suffered the same fate. Over 3,000 families have felt this pain, which nobody deserves. To the government, he says, we don't want more meetings. We don't want more statements. We demand action. There are 3 months left to this government. Act on it. He says, we're dying, we're drowning in a sea of blood and tears. VOA's Celia Mendoza joins us now. Celia, thanks. How popular was Fernando?
Fernando was actually in the middle of a pack of the candidates. We're talking about 8 of them, and Luisa Gonzalez is the front runner. However, in the past few weeks, he has made headways to try to get to the front of the pack, and it's believed that that's the reason he probably got the attention of some of the cartels. We have to remember that what we have with him is a person who actually has created a name for going against the cartels. He had mentioned that this was a narco state, that cartels had been influenced in the politics. And in the past few months, we have seen the rise between the both Mexican cartels that are influenced in the area, the cartel of Sinaloa and the cartel of Jalisco Nueva Generación. So this is something that is front line in the investigation of what probably happened and how he actually was killed.
And really, that's the question. Why, indeed, would anyone want to have him dead? The president said the perpetrators will be dealt with and elections are set to be continued as planned. But what is the mood in the country, you know, as people count down to the elections?
They're extremely worried, especially because the president, as well as the lead of the election committee, have said that they're going to continue with the elections. That's going to happen the 20th of August. Many of the candidates have suspended their public appearances. According to the government, they have given them security to most of the candidates. Today, the family has spoken. It's believed that the wake of Villavicencio will happen during today's hours. And one of the main things for people is what has been happening over the past year. Ecuador was one of the few examples of peace and security within South America, but then we have seen the influence of the drug cartels, even though they don't produce drugs and they're no major exporters of drugs. They are between two of those countries, which is Peru and Colombia, and that has created a really good ground for cartels to try to get in there. And that's one of the main reasons is believed that the people are getting attacked and worried. Just about 2 months ago, the mayor of Manta voted Couple's hand was gunned down while he was talking to a sports team, and one of the kids was killed as well. So then that shows you the problems that they have been facing in terms of security, something that we hadn't seen in years.
The other candidates have expressed their condolences. We heard one refer to what has happened to the presidential candidate, saying that 3,000 Ecuadorians have already suffered, 3,000 families have felt the pain. But then one could also say, are they truly remorseful? Because his exit leaves them more chances of becoming president.
It's a lot of questions that DA's office has to answer, and that definitely is one of those. Is competition to try to get to the presidential office. It's been a lot of controversy over the past few months. Guillermo Lasso completely stopped and dissolved the Congress, and this is part of that. But one of the main things that we have to pay attention to, and this is what authorities are focusing, is who are the enemies of Villavicencio, who wanted him dead. Is being controversy because a video showed up from a cartel named Los Lobos, an ally of the cartel of Jalisco Nueva Generación in Mexico. But then just hours ago, another video came out from that cartel, and the fake video that they are not responsible for the killing. So it seems like an effort to try to destroy the image that Villavicencio was getting of being tough against cartels and drugs and trying to mud his image. And also it shows that it might be other members of the candidates that might be having relationships with some of these groups, but that's something that the DA's office has to investigate. As of now, they know that the person that was captured died in the shots fired between the police and the perpetrator of the attack. So now that person is not able to answer questions. 6 more people were arrested in investigations, and now just time will definitely give an answer to what happened and what is happening in Ecuador as they prepare in 10 days to have their first round of elections on the presidential election.
Indeed, it must be a trying time for his family and also his supporters. Many thanks, Celia Mendoza, VOA correspondent there.
Thank you.
We'll go to other stories now. Hong Kong's National Security Police have arrested 10 people for conspiracy to collude with foreign forces and incitement to riots relating to a now disbanded fund for pro-democracy protesters. Police said in a statement 4 men and 6 women aged 26 to 43 were arrested on suspicion of conspiring with the 612 Humanitarian Relief Fund to take donations from organizations abroad to help groups that support people in exile or promote sanctions against Hong Kong. People did not identify the 10, but said their homes and offices were being searched. Documents, electronic devices had been seized. The relief fund was set up in 2019 to help pay legal and medical costs of arrested protesters. The suspects were under investigation and further arrests were not being ruled out. North Korea is bracing for tropical storm Khanun as it is expected to barrel through capital Pyongyang. And video footage aired by state media, trees and crops swayed in strong wind while water gushed through streams and rivers. State media report officials and workers of the electric power industry are taking timely measure to cope with the typhoon. The country's KCNA news agency said this. The military and the ruling party have also been ordered to prepare flood mitigation measures and salvage crops. Downgraded from a typhoon to a tropical storm, Khanun is forecasted to make landfall in North Korea early Friday. That's according to South Korea's meteorological agency. So residents say they are worried about climate change and the damage Typhoon Khanun will cause as the storm made landfall on the southeast coast of the South Korea, and this is after dumping heavy rain across southern Japan over the past weeks. Warnings have been issued across South Korea, with more than 330 flights cancelled. More than 10,000 people moved to safety. Gwanghwamun subway station in central Seoul closed one of its gates connected to the square to prevent possible safety accidents, while hundreds of scheduled trains bound for Busan were cancelled at the capital's main railway station. The storm has brought up to 2.36 inches of rain per hour in areas on the east coast, with maximum wind speeds of 90 kilometers per hour in parts of Gyeongsang Province, Jeju Island, and that's coming also from South Korea's weather agency. And finally on the program, Keisha Shehab and Anna Myers have become the first mother and daughter duo to reach the edge of space, traveling on a Virgin Galactic rocket plane. Keisha from Antigua won the prize while flying to the UK, where her daughter is studying. They were joined on board by John Goodwin, 80, a British former Olympic canoeist. Goodwin, who has Parkinson's, bought his ticket for space for $250,000 back in 2005. At the peak of their flight, they were able to see the curvature of the Earth and the black of space. They have, we understand, now landed safely in New Mexico, and that's in the southern United States. And that's the world today. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Bye for now.